are back, 3 in a row, 3P. You know what we're doing this week. Welcome back to More Than the Title, episode 198. I'm your host as usual, Jarrett, Chief Revenue Officer at Outside the Box Digital. And you know I got my brother, my brethren, your favorite CEO, Chadeo. What's good, cuz?
We in the building, man. Like you said, 3P. You know, listen, I ain't gonna lie. I'm still high off of yesterday's 2.5 hour episode. I'm still getting comments. I'm still getting messages like, yo, that was fire.
Oh, man.
We do it for y'all, ladies and gentlemen. We do it for y'all. But just wait, there's more. Just understand, we got another phenomenal guest. And I always say phenomenal, and I never lead you wrong, right? So we got another phenomenal guest that's going to come on and tell her story. And she's, you know, we're going to laugh. We're going to joke shit. We might even cry a little bit. You know what I mean? But we're going to have a good time. She's going to drop some gems. So please pay attention, right? So you know how we like to start every show? Grateful and thankful. The way I want to start this show is I want to say thank you to everybody that was a guest, that has provided us an opportunity and entrusted in us that opportunity for us to go ahead and support them and show up and show out. We appreciate that. We don't take it for granted. We don't take it lightly. And that's why we try to just be consummate professionals every single time we do something. So we appreciate you guys, right? And thankful, right? For everybody that hasn't been a guest, but that has watched the show and then talked about us in a positive manner, because we hear a lot of chatter that we're being talked about in rooms that we're not in the moment in a positive way. So GNC, thank you for the opportunities and thank you for all the positive feedback that we're getting. We love you guys.
Absolutely. And I just want to take it a step further with the guests, man. Just
go ahead, man. Yeah.
Yes, including this queen, right? Like we'll talk like we've built this platform and had celebrities, millionaires, billionaires, influencers, C-suite, right? And we haven't paid a dime for any guest. And that's something I'm really proud about. Like, we're not transactional. People know that we're building something special. We're about the culture. We're giving the information back. We're giving the game back. And the fact that we can even do what we're doing now with their support and the fan support, it means everything to us. It keeps us going straight up.
I love it.
You know what I mean? And before we start, introduce this queen. Shout out to another queen. Angel Live is an entire live podcast network team, the first woman-owned, black-owned podcast network in the world, and the largest black-owned podcast network in the world. So if you want more great content like More Than the Title, make sure you take out your phone, download the app, scan the QR code, and subscribe, and half of your subscription goes to the content creator of your choice. So not only is she giving us a platform, she's paying out on the platform, man. So get down with it. It's a great time to be alive, you dig?
What a time to be alive. We don't talk it, we walk it, ladies and gentlemen. Man, we lead by example, baby.
Rock with our own, baby, with that shit.
Let's start the show.
Going. So I'm going to give some context before I even give their formal intro, right?
Here we go.
I met this lady. Right in my journey, I was working at Talk Walker. Before we started the LinkedIn journey, before we started the content game, I was trying to do some initiatives. I was trying to do webinars. I just felt there was a better way to connect with customers and what we was doing. And so, you know me, guys, I'm outgoing. We're doing it. And this young lady was one of the people that supported it. You know, I got something, a program off the ground. We were doing webinars together. She didn't know me from a hole in the wall, was always respectful, always kind, always supportive, and just honored to have her on the show today, man. So this is a relationship that goes back at least 5-6 years, and I'm grateful for it. You know what I mean? So, you know, she's a powerhouse communicator, strategist, currently serving as the Chief Communication and Marketing Officer for William & Mary Law School. 20 years of experience spanning from print journalism, radio, broadcast, digital media, and higher education, and has built a career centered around one key theme, which is the authentic storytelling. From her early days writing for publications like the Virginia Pilot and the New Journal and the Guide, to leading major market initiatives at institutions like Norfolk State University and Virginia Peninsula Community College. She's constantly leveraged her expertise to connect with audience, build brand, and drive results, y'all, which means she's seen her in the boardroom.
Boom.
Seen her at the campus.
Boom.
You see her on some of your favorite marketing campaigns. You see her helping you get into school in a row and make sure your kids are doing good. And you've seen on other platforms that she's here on your favorite podcast for the very first time. Let's introduce our sis, Miss Doris Denise Taylor, y'all.
Yeah.
Happy Friday.
You've been since I last met you.
I like it. I really like it.
Well, thank you for the intro, Jared. I appreciate that. I did take you as my hype man everywhere I go now. Thank you.
Come on, I'm here.
That's what we do.
Our mitzvahs, I do everything.
Got it. Just send me a raise. I got you.
Shout out to everybody on the check-in. Shout out to Twitch, Instagram, YouTube. So if it's your first time tuning in, y'all, you know how we like to start. We like to, talk about the mindset where we got to success today. So sis, please let us know some early, tell us about your upbringing, some early influences.
Oh man, where do I start? So I am first of all, tell anybody before I'm anything, I'm a writer first. I started out as a journalist. So that was my original goal when I was in school was I want to go out here. I want to be an award-winning journalist. I want to write stories because my mom says I'm naturally nosy, which is true. So I'm naturally a curious. Always in somebody's business. So, right. What better way to do that than I can ask questions and tell folks story as my job. So that I went to Old Dominion University, studied journalism and writing English and graduated. And then what happened in the industry around 2005, the newspaper industry was tanking. So, so when I got out of school, I've been a writer since I was a kid, thinking I was going to come out of school and go right into, this writing career did not happen. So I had to figure it out. So for a little while, as a writer, I just happened to have a hobby, many hobbies that kind of were communications based. I knew how to, as a hobby, I did web development and design. So when I went to newspapers, I always had multiple positions. I wasn't just a writer. I was a writer. I was designing ads. I was, doing website work. So I always kind of had multiple skill sets at different jobs because I was always learning something. So I started out writing, wanted to do that. I still do very much do that. That's the basis of everything that I've done. Every career point, every milestone is always based in writing and telling stories. Always, always, always. But just learning different ways to do that, how to create different kinds of content, just like a podcast. It's different podcasts. I'm sure you guys do a lot of writing and strategy before you even get on the air. Before you get that mic on, there has to be some pen to paper, some sort of strategy. Absolutely. And that's kind of the basis of everything I've done my whole career. But I started out doing that. Then I kind of just flowed into, I did teaching for a little bit. I taught, K through 12. It was a bit much for me. Still love the kids, but a bit much for me. And then as I worked in newspaper, I worked in the Black press for a long time for the New Journal Guide, which is where I learned so much about journalism, about media in general, about the differences between, the Black media and mainstream media, how telling our stories. And that's where I became really, really passionate too about telling our specific stories, telling stories of people who may not get the notoriety like other people. Like, how do I elevate people who normally would not feel even comfortable telling their story? So I would go out in the community and talk to folks who had unique problems that related to just, the Black community. I also worked for 3 different newspapers as well, called Hampton Roads Happenings, Suffolk Happenings, and then there was a church magazine we created together as well that's in Hampton Roads in Suffolk. But I have been really fortunate. The editors and, the publishers always gave me lots of creative freedom to just kind of do what I wanted to do. Because here's the one tip for anyone who wants to go in this industry, start at small newspapers. Because once you get in there, they will just kind of let you learn. They'll let you experiment. They let me tear the website up a couple times. They let me do things that weren't, perfect at first, but they gave me the space to be creative. They gave me the encouragement to just try new things. So I'm so thankful for my first bosses who really gave me that opportunity. Then I moved on to television news. Did that for about 5 years. So I did web writing there, where you're basically just kind of writing web stories, and you're turning, if an anchor is doing a story, you turn that into a web story, and you're pushing. I did a lot of social media, and that's where I grew my love for social. It was in television news, ironically. So as I learned social, that was before we had 5,000 different social networks. I think it was just Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter were the 3 we were managing at that time. And then I got an opportunity to kind of get out of television news. It does get tiring. News is kind of draining. After a couple of years, you kind of end up writing the same stories 50 times. Then I moved on to just do social media alone. And that's probably where I met you, Jarrett, is when I was just a social media manager. That was when the time in the industry where they were really focusing just on letting people manage social media alone. And then that's when a couple years later, I moved into higher education, and I've been in love with this industry ever since. And I think I'm gonna stick around for a little while.
I'm ready. First of all, Doris, do you have a best friend? I just want to know, do you have a best friend?
I I have lots of best friends.
I would have loved to be, I'm telling you right now, right? Every time you talk about how good you are as a writer, it took me back to the days of school, right? I'm an urban city kid, and I never did homework, right? I never did essays. I would look for Doris. You would have been my best. Where was you when I was in school, Doris? I would have sat right by. This is what I normally do. I sit right behind the person that do, because I did sit in the back, right? So I'm like, sit right here. So by the time you did the homework, just go ahead and slide it back to me. I'm gonna change a couple words, and I would have been your best friend. And I'm telling you, I'd have bought you lunch, everything. You'd be like, Chaddy, I love you, because you would have been my best friend. I ain't gonna lie. I would have utilized your talents.
All right, trust me. I was that person. I wrote papers for people.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody. I was always the proof editor. Even now, I help my friends if they're applying for a job. Hey, Doris, can you edit this? Hey, can you help me with this resume? But I love it, though. It's what, I love that my skill set literally can help, any friend, or if they need help with anything, I'm always available. I don't charge my friends.
I love it.
Oh, man.
Listen. I believe in reciprocity. I'd be like, yo, what you want for lunch? What you want for breakfast? You like coffee? I'd have brought you in a coffee every day and all that, man.
I can easily bribe with Starbucks.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
But you said something dope too, like being able to work on what you wanted to work on, right? Like the fact that you have the autonomy to write about what you wanted to write about and things like that. But like you also said something about going to newspaper. I just want to tell the audience too. Another thing that a lot of writers could be doing right now: create your own blog. The fact that you thought about going into web marketing, right, changed the whole trajectory of your career. Mm-hmm. Right, like you'd have been like, I just love writing, and you know what I'm saying. So like, just learning that skill set, applying it. Start on a blog, y'all. Start putting some paid ads behind your articles, right? See how that works. Understand how the algorithm works. Understand the analytics behind that. How to set up a funnel. All of those things are very valuable to any organization. So that was my problem, though, and I'm curious to ask you this too, sis.
Yeah.
When you have so many different skill sets, do you feel undervalued when you come through and you're doing the website, you're doing the content, but you're paid for this specific role? Like sometimes it can work out and sometimes it can backfire. Like what advice would you give to people?
Oh, yeah. Actually, in addition to all those things, one of the big things I left out was I ran my own company for a little while too. I've got all these skill sets. So now I'm a hustler in my brain. It's blame my dad. That's just kind of how he'd always learn a skill, monetize it. And I picked that up from him. So I'd learned something, monetize it. Right, exactly. So I'm learning at the company, but I'm also learning, okay, well, I can do this as a side hustle. And so that's what I did. I said, well, instead of doing that, let me turn it into my own little company. So what I started doing was doing a little freelancing because I had the web skill and the writing skill. And I noticed so many people needed help. And I just started offering it to small companies. And so, but one of the things that I did, I made a big mistake. I had so many different skill sets. I undervalued myself, and I ended up doing so much more for so little. And the way that I tanked it is I burned myself out because I ended up taking too much and not getting enough money for it. I learned my lesson. And even with jobs, I'd go in, throwing everything on the table. I can do all these things. And it's good to do that to get the job, but then you've got to be careful. And this is something I preach. Even I have a little niece, she's pray for her. I'm constantly in her ear about that. You have to value yourself high first. Understand that your skill set is what they look for. Yes, you can you can do something in an hour. It took you how many hours to learn how to do that skill? And you have to understand the value of what you bring to the table. Someone else might take 5 hours to do a graphic, but because you have this skill set, you can do it better in a shorter amount of time. You have to charge people accordingly. You have to value yourself that way. So absolutely, it's still something I struggle with because again, I'm kind of the helper bee. I like what I do. I love seeing projects, I love creating things, but you really have to pull back because the drawback is you get burned out and then you can't be help to anybody. So you have to learn how to balance.
Yeah, I mean, we go through that shit every day.
Every day.
Yesterday. Jarrett got on one hat, but it's an invisible 10 up there. I got on an invisible 10 hats. Like we understand what you're saying all the way. Yeah. I got another question for you. I was thinking about this, right? Did you ever develop like an alter ego, right? So as you're writing, now, let me watch where I'm going with this, right? Because like people love the newspaper, but then there's like certain columns like Ask Sally, or you know what I'm saying? Like, you know that column where people write in and it's like a special little column. Did you ever think about like developing like an alter ego so that you could kind of get away from the mundane everyday news and kind of like, well, this article is like, you know, this section right here, I'm not gonna use my real name, but we're gonna get into some shit over here. Like, did you ever think about doing that?
No, well, I have done columns, and I've even done radio where I've done radio, and I did have a different personality when I was on the air. I did do that on the air, but no, I wrote as myself. You know, I always, because one of the things as a writer, especially a beginning writer, you want clips. That's kind of back in the day when there was
portfolio.
You want to build your portfolio. So no, I put my name on it. Every piece I wrote, you know, I had a column, but I absolutely use my name every time now.
But couldn't it work the other way if you do, like, because that could also build your portfolio. If you're, you know, such and such, whatever, right? And you get 10 million views on this blog, and you get that to your portfolio, right? Yeah, that helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I thought about that. Maybe
because those columns be spicy. I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, and back in the day, right? And the reason that I know this is because I did construction for a long time, like 22 years. So back in the day, that's what they did. They read the newspaper. Like a lot of the guys brought in the newspaper. They read the newspaper. So a lot of times they would go right to their favorite section. Like everybody has a favorite section, whether it's the comics or, you know, like Sudoku or like, they favorite. But a lot of them was that like spicy column where you could like ask them anything, or they was talking about something crazy over there. And you never knew who was actually writing it, because, you know, they had like a pseudo name or something like, but it got a lot of traction. I ain't gonna lie.
Like, trust me, I would definitely have to have a pseudo name to say the things I want to say.
Do it. You about to start one.
Government, so I can't really say a whole lot, but you know, I have to be
right. See, so that's the perfect outlet, right? That's the perfect outlet for you.
That kind of be fine for a podcast too, though. Imagine if you do like the first 48, and you want
right.
podcast and it's fire.
Right, like the witness protection. You just have the black box and just a pseudo name there. I'll take that.
And just so you know, like. We do it a lot of times on the podcast, right? Just in case you needed to do like a voice, you could hit them with a. In a world where it is not Doris. My wife
not Doris.
Not Doris.
That wasn't me. I wasn't even in town.
And you can have fun with it, right? You can have fun with it, right? Because a lot of people have multiple sides to their personality, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The fun side and the this and that. You can't. And we had a conversation a couple weeks ago with one of our guests about when you show up to meetings, when you show up to work, what personality, what side do you present for different opportunities in different spaces, right? So this could have been a space where you get a chance to that creative side that you don't get a chance to kind of express in your 9 to 5. You can kind of just let that shine, unfiltered, and then just kind of run with it. It's like almost like therapy to kind of let it out over there and then, do the regular stuff. So, something to think about, maybe something to think about, because it's never too late, right?
No, never too late. And
people always love spicy.
Still spicy.
I keep on the spicy writing for just me. Now I do still do that. No one reads those, just me.
Okay.
Well, you ever thought about authoring a book? Was that something on the pipeline?
Right.
I do. I have 2 I'm working on now.
Okay.
I used to do a lot of short stories in college, and so I took one and flipped it to a book. One thing about writers, some of us are super duper perfectionist, and because I am critical of other writers' work, I've been sitting on them for probably about 10 years now, which is bad. But then it's also, I was in school for a little while. I finished up my master's about a year or 2 ago, so I was really busy and with jobs I didn't have a chance to finish. But my goal is within the next 5 years to publish both of them, so they're in the works for sure.
Well, listen, if it's spicy and you need a male model for the cover,
all right, I got you. I got your number now, Chad. I will definitely call you.
Put a snake around me. I'm ready.
I got you covered.
I said around me, not on me. I knew you were gonna do that.
It's got to be real. Nothing fake. You got to be real. You got the Diddy baby oil. You have to be ready.
Right. That's the baby. I'm ready for the baby oil. Yes.
AB, man, pause him. Please let him know. AB. Everybody on Instagram. Let him know he's wilding.
YouTube loves it.
The baby oil on the Diddy joint. And then the snake
we have
around the neck.
Video evidence that you agreed to this. So just know if I do call you, you already said yes.
Well, listen, you know, all I'm gonna say is like this, you know.
Talk to him.
He's there. He's ready.
I like this one.
Right, sell a lot of books.
Let's sell them. You know what I'm saying? Like my kids is grown. You know, I ain't got no. You know what I mean? My kids is grown. I ain't. You know, all my kids is grown. So they like,
so they
on that book, and I'm like, facts.
Hey, look, if it's making a little money,
right.
Right.
You do some more push-ups, you might get a cover.
You got to set the example. You have to
get with
set
the
the example.
challenge.
That's right.
I love it. I'm like,
fuck that. No muscle.
You would do it too. Don't even, Cuzzo.
I'm doing it.
Hold on. If you got presented, let's talk about this, right? Because we had a guest that said she had gotten presented with an opportunity when she was writing also to be the model for the cover of a book that she ended up turning it down. But Cuzzo, if you got presented with something like that, would that be something I can't see you really turning that down. I think it would be like,
why wouldn't we?
We got to pay some bills. We'll be right back.
I will be, and if you want to, you can scan the QR code. I'll do all that. We do book covers, bar mitzvahs. We do all that shit. I can't turn nothing down at this point. You sure me? Keeping this shit real on a Friday.
Line stepping is in right now. Put him in some cowboy boots.
Come on. We look at the offer. We look at it.
Depends on the offer.
Right.
You got to look at it first.
Look at the
offer. Without to value yourself, like we were talking about. You have to value yourself. Yeah.
We talked about the mundaneness of the news, and kind of once you're in it and you kind of see almost like what drives the news, right? The certain type of stories, even though it's a different person, but it's the certain type of stories, the clickbait and things of that nature. And it starts to get like a little, like mundane, right? What's the process that you go through to kind of like reinvent yourself when you know that you're kind of talking about the same topic, but you want it to sound like a fresh and new, innovative idea?
In news, well, depends on the kind of news. The news itself, you know, journalists are taught to be objective. So it's like we can't put any bias in it. We can't put there's no spice personality. It has to be factual, you know, or else because journalists with us, our reputation on the line, we get in trouble. If it's not just based on fact, if you don't have evidence to back up that fact, you can get sued. So we don't have a lot of latitude when it comes to writing stories. You get the facts. For instance, if there's a fire or some tragedy, you're depending on, you know, you have to have your sources, which would be the PIOs, the, you know, public information officers, have good relationships with them, have those conversations. You get the information out as quickly and as accurately as you can. And once you have that, it's just one of the things is you have to keep people updated. People want, if, you know, for instance, if something tragic happens in your neighborhood, you don't care about the fluff. You don't care about the journalist's opinion about anything. You want to know the facts. You want to know if your family's protected. Do I need to evacuate the area? Yeah. So what and that's the one thing I do love about the news. Well, what used to be the news, even though it's changed to this other thing now. I started there, but when, you know, trained journalists are trained to give people the information that they need when they need it to save lives. That's the whole goal. You know, that's why you see reporters out there in, you know, really dangerous situations. Right. They're running, their jobs are so underrated, honestly. You know, it pains me to see them, you know, going through a lot at this point, because that is not an easy job for, especially younger journalists. It's not a lot of money in it for them. They do it because they really love it. And it is very dangerous, honestly. It's very, very, especially the field. I wasn't a field reporter, but those who are out in the field, especially in television, it's really dangerous. Really.
Message.
There's a lot of people risking their life for content on social media right now. How many crazy videos you see on social? I be seeing people jump off the side of the buildings. You be seeing those things.
Exactly. It's trying to get that, you know, that quick content. But yeah, you know, I tell people be thoughtful about it, because sometimes when you have a large audience, large platform, what you say can really impact what, you know, how someone's feeling. and can impact their decisions. Because, you know, when I was in school, we used to study kind of, you know, stories back in the day, and there was it was a parody, but people actually thought there was like an alien invasion and started doing all types of crazy things because they thought the parody was real, that they were actually being invaded by aliens. So you got to be careful. It's crazy. It's one of our textbooks, but that's an example. You know, you have to be careful with the words that you say, the information you're putting out there. And that's where one of the things that communications and professionals are dealing with now is disinformation and misinformation. Right now, we have so much flying out here. Our jobs are so different. It's not just in, you know, first it was getting the information out accurately, getting the information out quickly. Now it's, when I put out the information, is anyone going to believe me now? You know, the institutions, the media companies themselves have taken a massive hit over the last, I'd say, decade or so. And people think it just started with politics. This has been, media has been taking a hit for a long time. Yeah. Well, people just don't trust the news outlets anymore, and that's one of my fears. It's dangerous because really, especially with local news, it's supposed to be there to help people get what they need to safely maneuver, you know, in their lives. And it's just the trust has eroded quite a bit.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, but there's a reason behind that, right?
Absolutely.
There's a deeper rooted reason in why we don't trust the media, right? Because we have seen time after time that not only are they only pumping their objective, right, what they want us to listen to, but a lot of the times now they are giving out misinformation. You understand what I'm saying? And you know, with our culture, once you kind of like burn us one time and like, you know, once you break that trust, we're like, oh no, I'm not listening to you no more. Because let's say we followed you, like you said do this, or you said, and we had an incident where that didn't benefit us. It hurt us badly, like you said, right? It really devastated our livelihood following that information. It's no way that we're going to listen to it again and give it the same, you know, credibility.
That's also a problem in the culture too, because there's only so many publications that we actually trust and listen to, and that's a lot of power for a media company, and they could easily be bought or sold, right? So now we go back to misinformation and disinformation, right? And who wants us to know what?
Yeah, and then there is a different way. You know, as I said, I worked for the Black Press for a long time, and you know, I would be on an assignment and write a story, and then you know, even though I did work for a mainstream newspaper too, but the way that they write a story is totally different because I don't think some of it they're trying to be biased. Is they have different audiences. So if their audience is broader, they're going to write to that broader audience. But if your audience is more niche, that's who you're going to, you know, write to if you're only serving a particular population. So that's where, you know, and also when we think about the misinformation, disinformation, that's why it's so imperative that we support places that do tell our stories that we care about. You know, people will say, I don't see this and I don't see that. I said, when I worked in the Black Press, it was like twisting arms to get people to just simply subscribe or support the newspaper. And sadly, sometimes they would only come to us whenever the larger mainstream newspapers were not covering what they needed. But when it came to the financial support, we were always just trying to make it, just trying to get it right. You know, my publisher, who's like a trailblazer, you know, one of my mentors, and she's been keeping it afloat for over 30 years now, you know, making lots of sacrifices to make that happen because she really cares about the community and really cares about making sure people are heard. You know, elevating our stories and really just is telling our history. As you know, now there's been a lot of news about our history being erased. And so we have to continue. It isn't just about the history back then. It's what we're continuing to do and how we're continuing to tell our versions of the stories, no matter which community you come from, you know. So that, you know, telling the narrative that narrative is so important.
Yeah, so I do want to talk on that point, but also want to talk on the other point. We just said, you know, like you said, you're telling the stories that are not heard, right? But we weren't getting the support, right? Do you think, in a way, in hindsight, is it just the way we're telling the stories or the way we're delivering the stories, right? Because, like, as a business owner, I got to think about, like, why isn't it, right? Like, because, you know, our culture, you know, if it bleeds, it leads. That's the mainstream. If it bleeds, it leads, right? Yeah. So, like, if we're not trying to do that, how do you kind of balance that of trying to get the right content, the delivery, the way we gotta, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do we still? Is there a way to make it happen? I'm just curious.
It depends on your audience, and this is where the writer in me comes in. You always have to consider when I'm writing something. The first thing they teach you in school is consider your audience. There's your audience. You know, that's what I do in my current job. Before I deliver anything, there's so many different types of ways that you can deliver content. So you got to figure out which one of those things. What does your audience want? And once you figure that out, depending on who they are, where you kind of see them hanging out, like, are they more on one social platform than the other? Do they like, podcasting? Do they like, television? Do they know what medium is it? And then you have to, and that's where it comes with kind of putting out content and asking your viewers, asking your readers, what is it that they want? They will tell you. If they don't, they will tell you. So it's being open to listening to the people you're delivering the message to. And if you have to make some adjustments, then you do that. But you can't know that until you ask and you just start, actually telling the stories, and they will tell you how they want they want to deliver. They will tell you.
That's a fact.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how we met, bro. So to give you context, that's what I was doing at that Talk Walker spot.
Got you.
She's working in Norfolk. So basically it was a social intelligence platform, right? So basically if we're Coca-Cola and you want to know what people are saying on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever, and they're giving you real feedback, and you basically compile that data to compile your strategy, right? So now if we know people don't like us talking about this specific topic, we don't write blogs on it no more. We cut that and we add the stuff that they do want us to hear. And that's what was a social intelligence platform.
Right.
So like a lot of stuff.
And I want to touch on something.
Sounds like that's an invaluable service. I'm gonna be honest with you, like knowing what your customer is saying, right?
I was killing the crew, cuz.
I mean, think about it. Any company, small, medium, large, doesn't matter. If you want to scale a company and you want to continue to be successful, it's very important to keep your finger on the pulse of what your customers are talking about, what they want, what they value. That I think that's an essential, right? An essential. I think everybody should have something like that, because that way you don't waste resources. You don't waste resources in curating material that people are not going to be receptive to.
It's costly.
It is. Market research is really expensive, but it's also expensive to not do it too, because you're just stabbed in the dark. Exactly. And I do want to talk about something you said as far as trust when it comes to any medium. But one of the things that I see a lot of media companies doing is kind of this bombarding of information without building relationships. It's kind of like, on some LinkedIn, I'll just get these random messages. Hey, just no relationship built. No rapport, just trying to sell me something right off the bat. And that the same thing when it comes to delivering content. You're asking people for the most valuable thing they have, their time and attention. Before they're willing to give that to you, you have to be willing, like I said, get that feedback from them, but build a relationship first. You don't just come for something. You've got to be willing to put the work in to do that. And that's where the research comes in. That's where the, asking people what they want, delivering what they want, and then constantly optimizing that to make sure you're still, like you said, have your finger on the pulse. Because when I came out of school, things changed. Newspapers no longer were allowed to just print newspaper. Now the newspaper has to do the digital, has to do website. Now they have to do social. They have, these relationships with television also, where they're pushing stories as well. So they have to kind of be everywhere to deliver in all different types of mediums. So it is communication, such a constantly evolving industry.
Yeah, my fault too, sis.
They're calling them Ice-T. They're calling them Ice-T again.
They're killing me on Twitch, calling me Ice-T. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't see that.
Ice Cube get Ice-T from, man. I don't know.
I've been called the son in Yankee Stadium, but I don't know.
I don't know what's going on. I wanna think about how I want to phrase this, but when a newspaper is full of what's important to the news in that moment, right? There can be several stories. There can be several stories that should be highlighted, should be pushed to the front covers, or the first, I don't know, what is it, like the first 10 pages are like, the most read or something like, I know it's like
above the fold.
Right, above the fold. There you go, right? That's what I'm saying, trying to say, right, above the fold, right? Yep. Have you had instances in your career where you felt like the story that you were working on, the impact of it should have been a lot higher in the placement of where the, above the fold, and it got placed lower? Like, have you had that experience, and how did you deal with that?
Yeah, every story I write should be above the fold. I don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Oh, that confidence.
That's just my ego talking. That's the alter ego. But no, one of the things I learned as a journalist, you cannot have an ego in this industry because you will submit your story you think is wonderful and grand to the editor, and it will come back completely different depending on what their angle is, what changes in the news, because the news is again moving with newspapers. It was moving all the time, and you have with newspapers you have a print a deadline, then they have to go to print, and you have so much time before you're even able. We're trying to make sure things are accurate, so you cannot. I'd say to new journalists, do not get married to any of your pieces. You cannot. Your job is to tell the story the best way you can, but once it gets to the editor, it is no longer your thing. It is, it is up to them. They shape it and mold it how they want to, and then you just move on to the next thing. So now I don't get too attached to stories in that way. I just, I write them, submit them, move on.
That's super hard though. It's super hard not to get attached to the work though, right? Like, come on, we're musicians, and we used to have this conversation all the time about getting attached to your work, right? And it's always, and even with content creation, it's always the one you least expect.
Yeah.
It's always the one that you like, this one right here, I'm just gonna throw this out there, not thinking about it. It goes, and that's the one I know for me on LinkedIn. It's the post I wrote in 5 minutes.
Right.
Didn't even think about it. Somebody told me, asked me how I got in the industry or something. I told them the story. I'm like, oh no, this is kind of funny. Let me just write it up real quick. It had about 12 typos. It was a big run-on sentence and got 100,000 views, 2,000 likes. Didn't think about it. The shit I try to craft and be like, yo, this bar right here. Oh, this is gonna kill him. This quote right here.
Oh yeah, no.
Love this.
No,
nothing. 2 likes is you, Doris and Chad, and you, Doris and Chad liking my shit. Ain't nobody.
It's always like that. Ironically, for writing, it never bothers me with writing, but I get super irritated when it comes to my graphic work. But I spent a lot of time designing something, like if I do a logo or something for a client, and they will pick the one I hate, and I might have spent 2 seconds kind of putting something, some sort of graphic together for them. Or if it's something I like, I don't really want that representing, me. Oh, I love it. I get more attached to the graphic art than I do the writing, which is weird. I know.
What is the I'm just curious now, because just thinking about a newspaper like the Daily News or something like that. For us, New York Daily News, that comes out every single day, and then Sunday the newspaper's like triple the size, right?
Right.
What is the average time that you are allotted? Because like you said, it has to go to the editor, then it has to go to print. And these newspapers are out on stands. They're being thrown off the truck at 4 or 5 in the morning. So when these newspaper stands open up for the morning rush, it's already there. So what's the normal time frame for when you are given a story to write the story, have the story edited, and kind of submitted to make the next day's edition?
It depends, really.
Okay.
Now, sometimes the stories you see, unless it's like right in the moment, there's something happening right now, you literally have a couple of hours to get what you need. And I deal with reporters. That's part of my job now. Reporters are hitting me up. I've got a deadline. I've got 2 hours. I got to go. So I'm hustling to try to get somebody, an expert for them to talk to. So yeah, sometimes the deadline is now. And then especially television news, the deadline, there was no deadline. It was just, do it now. You have to get it out published before your competitors do. But sometimes you're, especially those Sunday papers, you might have worked on something for 3 months and then it may not have. Yeah. So sometimes they're not always, we call them evergreen, where they're not timely. They're just, you could just kind of publish those at any time. So sometimes the editor might have held on to something. Sometimes they're holding on to several stories. Some of your stories may not get published. You might have submitted it 5 months ago, or maybe the editor decided, like for instance, I worked for the New York Times a while ago too, but I did a different jobs, more advertising. And whenever, for instance, there was a plane crash, we couldn't publish, like you don't want to publish a study about plane crashes in the middle of, or put ads about about a plane when there's a crash. So then we would have to make a different decision on which ads we were going to put in the paper, depending on the current event that happened, because we, obviously we want to keep our advertisers spending lots of money to come back, and we don't want to do something that could possibly, scare them away, or, take away from the tragedy that might look something that might look insensitive. Or if you've got a mass shooting going on, if you got a fluffy story, sometimes it depends on what other stories, what's happening when something's going to run, or if it's going to run. Sometimes when you're doing PR, you have to keep that in mind too. If you're trying to pitch something that might be a little less important than, something that involves someone's life in danger, there's a massive storm coming, you don't submit a fluffy story right around then, because you already know I'm not going to get published at that point. So you wait a little bit, you submit it when you can, or you understand that your story's not going to get published until the news cycle has slowed down a bit.
Right.
But then how do you go like in that industry, especially with publishing, right? How do they value the content that you're writing, right? Like what if somebody came through, like there's no analytics, there's no attribution. So how do you make sure that your stuff stays above the fold?
It's really not your decision. Yeah, like I said,
it's the main editors and stuff like that.
Yes, the editors make that is 100%. They get paid to make those decisions. So yeah, there's a whole science to it. So when I was working for the small paper, it was a constantly evolving thing. You could have the whole paper designed. One day, something could happen and could knock your whole design off. So it is a tedious job. So that's why we don't get emotionally attached to it or angry about it, because and I've sat in that seat before. You understand they're not doing it for ego reasons. It's not personal. It is they're literally, I've got to do this because this is what's going to either sell papers, or this is the current event of the day that we need to get out to the public. And I'm okay, get my story kicked back if there's a bigger story. And I've done that. Matter of fact, I've written for a couple of publications where my story became a little bit more prominent because it might have held a little bit more importance than some other stories. It also depends on what's being published. Like, so if they don't have stories that have the kind of, or maybe the story didn't pan out the way they anticipated it panning out, because you're kind of doing these pitch meetings when you first come into the newsroom. You're kind of throwing whatever at the wall, and then if you come in with an idea, you think it's great, and then they read it like, no, it didn't really meet the mark. So then you'll get pushed back. But reporters, journalists kind of know that.
But is it like sales though, where you get inbound stories, like something happens? Okay, Doris, we need you to go over there. This happened. It was this over there, and the next time Johnson gets it, the next time this one gets it. Like, is that like that, like sales?
Yeah. In the television newsroom, it's like that. There's a hub, like people that sit right in the middle of the newsroom, and they're kind of like traffic control. So sometimes we're reading stuff, but people don't think that folks are reading those emails, some of those rude emails they send the news stations. We read every single one of them. Wow. Every one of them. So we see all the horrible, nasty comments, all that. But we really, really were taking those stories. Sometimes someone might have, there's a scammer, they're scamming folks in a particular neighborhood. There's, sometimes we relied heavily, especially with social media. Social media changed the game of news gathering so much back in, when I was in television. But yeah, so we would get lots of our best tips straight from the viewers. They would sometimes call us. There was sometimes our own people are out there, just kind of seeing things. And hey, I've seen this happen. There was a jet crash in Virginia Beach. I'll never forget that one. A jet crash in Virginia Beach a couple of years ago, and one of our photojournalists just so happened to be in the area when it happened and had his camera and started rolling. Wow. Thankfully, no one died. Thank goodness, no one passed away. That was like a miracle. But yeah, it was one of the bigger news stories I've worked on in my career. It was a lot going on when you have breaking news like that in the newsroom. There was no experience like that. It is total chaos.
I got a two-part question now. Yeah. You said there's no egos involved, right? You said there's no egos involved, but so first part of the question is, how could there not be egos involved when there's a lot of award-winning journalists that work for certain papers? I'm pretty sure they want their stories to be pushed out because their name now carries a certain amount of weight, right? Their personal brand now is high enough to where it helps push the company's brand. Yep. So I'm pretty sure that is so. And then it leads into the second question: as a journalist, what if they hired you and you're a very good journalist, but the stories that you're writing just doesn't seem to in that cycle don't make it? Is there like a penalty where it's like, okay, Doris, you haven't been in the last 7 papers, is there like a penalty or something? I don't know how to ask it. Like, is it like a penalty where it's like, if you don't make a certain amount of papers, you're on probation or something? Like,
how do you get evaluated, right?
Yeah, how does that work? Yeah.
Now, if you work in any sort of news, just know whoever's the news director, there's straight no chaser. Especially the directors I've worked for. Okay. They don't wait until the eval. They tell you right there in front of everybody in the newsroom. So if you're not doing your job right, and everyone else knows too. The newsrooms are the best training ground ever. That's why I said you don't you kind of learn as you go through that process. Well, instead of saying no egos, you learn how to take criticism. You learn that, because and it's the best kind of team building thing as well. When you work in a newsroom, literally every person's job is important. Every person's job. The broadcast cannot function without certain pieces together. One piece is gone, the whole thing falls, So we learn to work together as a team is how that works. And you understand, like I said, you understand the other person's job. So when I say, ego, yes, you want the awards, we go to school for this. Like I said, people risk their lives for this. So of course you love the accolades, but really when you go in that newsroom every day, that's not on your mind.
Okay.
You're writing, and I can say for all of the jobs I've had, my goal was to get it right, is to make sure that I am telling the right story to the right audience and elevating an issue that's important. And that's why journalists still get it's not a job that we do for lots of money. If you saw salaries, starting journalists, they are not good. It took me a long time to make any kind of living wage. It is not, and it's not always glamorous. Sometimes you're working, think about it, in storms. I was just talking about this with someone else. In storms, you have to go in the storm. You're like, we're talking about having changes of clothes at work because we're wading through like waist deep water to get to work. It's not fun or glamorous all the time, but you do it because there's something in you that calls you to this kind of work and you want to get it right. I mean, yes, like I said, we get together and you have the awards, we give the accolades, but that is not, I can tell you that from working from the amazing people I work with, their goal always is just telling the story and serving the community. Really, that is they're a different kind of public servant, honestly.
That's why I'm not like that type of journalist, because Doris, you seem very like reserved and like a real cool, calm demeanor. Like I'm a wildcat. Like you're not going to embarrass me. You're not going to embarrass me on the news floor, because you embarrass me, I'm not going. The ego going to come out. I'm gonna be like,
I never liked you anyway, pretty motherfucker.
I'm gonna tell that editor off. Like, I'll let him talk.
I get 3 leads.
I'll tell you.
You're gonna fire me. My shit was hot.
Right.
What you mean that was garbage? That was super hot fire.
Right. But see, you know what? And I'll tell you this. Now I'm not saying I have not seen it. I have seen it. I've seen egos, and those are the people that are not as successful. Honestly, the people that can't separate that don't know how to separate that ego, that pride away from what your goal should be. They have the most issues. Staying in that business and doing well, honestly. I don't see them last a long time in those businesses.
But that's also a transferable skill set, though. Like that, you said, the not having an ego, be able to take the criticism and all that makes you a good marketer, right? Yeah. Because now you can't be attached to a certain campaign. You got to keep it moving. If it don't grow, we got to roll. Now you as a CMO, it's the same thing, right? Like I can't be attached to this one thing, this one idea. Whatever the analytics tells me, that's what we rolling with.
Right, because I can tell you right now, one of the things I had to learn how to do well was fail. Failing is a big part, especially when I moved into the marketing side of things. Oh my God, marketing will humble you so much. You will start doing all this work and you think, oh, I got it. This is going to be amazing. You put it out there, nobody likes it, or they're tearing it up, And so that's what I said. The public will humble you very quickly, and so then you start to understand it's not about you. And the minute you get that, and you become more authentic in your work, and then it'll just click. Once you realize it is what you're writing, what you're putting out is not about you and your ego and your accolades and your pride. It is about the audience and the people you're serving. Naturally, success will come because people feel that authentic connection. Even in your writing, when I write for the audience, and you can feel that. You can feel when someone's inauthentic in a writing when they just write it and they're just about what they're getting from it. Yeah, that's not the way in this business.
So, and then it's stressful. I got to ask you now, though, sis. What was the biggest win and the biggest loss? Right? What would you say? What was the biggest win for you think, or biggest campaign that you've done, and what was one of the biggest loss or failures in your category, and how did you get over it?
Okay, that sounds like third period to me. I'm just
that's about like third, fourth.
Sound like third period to me.
About third, fourth. What's one of the wins? What the loss?
Well, I'll say one of my bigger wins was Virginia Peninsula Community College. I was, I said I'd done web and social, and I was still newer to the marketing side of things, and I kind of got thrown full throttle into it in the middle of a name change. They were changing their name on everything, which is a bear, and I had full rebrand of everything, bottom up. And I'd done it a little bit at Norfolk State, but I did it with the team, you know, had an agency, but this time 100%, all the strategy, all of it was on us. So, you know, I had to think quickly on my feet. I pulled together resources. I don't know how, where some of them came from, but things just aligned. And I had a wonderful team, and we rebranded the college, some of the new things. We did new commercial, like new everything, new collateral, letterhead, all of that. And so, and in the middle of all that, we also helped boost the college's enrollment after an 8-year decline. So on top of that, there was a new president. So it was a complete change of everything. They're still kind of doing some transitioning, but yeah, I said that was the biggest one. Not, you know, I was brand new to the college itself, and, you know, newer to just full-time marketing. And I had to jump in fully and kind of learn it on the fly. Just go.
And you control the P&L, all of that, everything, budgeting, everything.
Right. And very little budget. I'll say that. You know, that's the one thing most, you know, you're kind of, one thing you learn as a marketer at higher ed, you don't have a lot of budget for a lot of things. You got to be really creative. Small team, small budget. So you really find ways to be resourceful. And biggest losses, there are many of those. too many to name, honestly. Not saying I don't have any losses. No, I have a lot of them. No, but I say just with a broad brush, I learned from it. You know, like I might have written something that didn't turn out right, or maybe I made an assumption about something. Like I said, it happens often. I still lose plenty. But the thing of it is, again, I keep my ego in check as much as I can. It's not about me. I try to take the hit on the chin, learn from it, move on.
Okay. So I got a question now. You said that a lot of the journalists that start out and things of that nature don't make a lot of money, and it's very hard for them to make a living. I'm curious then, because obviously there's only a certain amount of spots as an executive producer or editor-in-chief and things of that nature. Then if you're just, let's say, a standard journalist, but you've been there 2 or 3 years, like what kind of accreditations, or what do you use as a platform to say, like, okay, it's time for me to get a raise, or asking for more money? And if you're not bumping up in title, you're still kind of like in the journalist seat, like if that makes sense. Like how does that work then?
Like as far as how do they move up? Well, it depends on,
right.
You know, really every journalist has their own goals. Some people really, like, if you've seen some local reporters, they just love being in the news. They don't care how much they make. They're okay with just 100% just being in the field. That's just what they love to do. They're fine. Right. Some people who have come in with ambition, like I want to be an executive producer. I want to be a director. And right. Sometimes really it's just being bold, making sure that your managers, like any other job, know that that's what you want to do. So you kind of start, you know, you come in those pitch meetings ready to come up with good stories. You know, you're looking for stories that are going to get you the most traction. So you have to go in there with good ideas, go in there ready, amped up energy, just like you would any other job. And then you make it clear to your managers, that's what you want to do. You know, you go and have the conversation, you have the negotiations. And sometimes with journalists, it's hopping stations too. If you see an executive producer job somewhere else, or when the job comes available, you know, that happened a lot in our newsroom. You apply for it just like anything else, and either they give it to you or they don't, or you go somewhere else.
Fume out of here.
Because the reason that I asked that, because just really quickly, a lot of jobs just have a standard pay structure where even if you don't get promoted title wise, if you're in the job after a certain amount of years, your pay gradually increases anyway. So that's why I was asking, like, you know, do journalists have anything like that, or do you have to like change a title to kind of get a raise in pay, or, you know, a salary bump or something like that?
Yeah, and it depends on the parent company. Like, you know, media, you know, television stations, radio stations, they get sold to different companies. I think we were sold at least 2 or 3 times in my 5 years that I was at a local television news station. So it depends on the station, on the parent company who actually owns the station, how they run things. But a lot of times, like, I didn't get a raise for 4 years, you know. Because I didn't it was already low. I didn't negotiate. Shit. I didn't ask. That was part of the thing. I didn't ask. And then at the end of it, when I did ask, it was very small, and then I wanted a different job, and they said no, and that's when I knew it was time to get on out of there and do what I wanted to do, as opposed to that I didn't want to do that particular job anymore. So I left the company altogether.
See, but that's why building a personal brand is so important. Whether you're a journalist, salesperson, anything, unless you're in a city job where it's that type of structure, where you know what I'm saying, it's an actual ladder, right? And you actually have to do certain criteria to reach the next level. The personal brand's important. You want to get the best stories, you got to make sure that audience wants you. If the audience is calling for you, then you're gonna get that spot. Look at a Stephen A.
Yeah,
look at that, right? He worked and bust his ass to get to that point, but now to the point where you have the top show on the top rated network and you're making $100 million, and you can negotiate and leverage it because you have a brand that calls for it. And that's what we got to do.
No, the reason I was asking, because some company has like PIPs, you know what I mean? Like little smaller things. Like, okay, like if you score a front page, you know, if your story hits the front page, you know what I mean? Like you get a nice little bonus, or, you know, that's why I was asking, like, is there any type of incentives? Like, you know, if your stories, if you get to the front page, you get a little bonus, or, you know, if you what's it called? Like Newsweek or something, like Sweeps Week or something like that. If your story makes like
that's why I said earlier, bro, because it's no attribution, right?
That's what I'm saying. Right? How do you know you're doing your thing?
It could be your cover story. It sold 100,000 papers this year, right? And who's to say it was that cover story? What if I went to the spicy shit that was in page 10? What if I personally love that? There's no way to attribute what to what. So yes, it's not my story, but it was my thing that got 50,000 people to read. I'm on page 3, and I can't tell the bosses that. And that's
and you can with web store with stories, and what they do with those, and that's where those accolades come in. They can submit their stories to, you know, to the awards for each, you know, for media companies, and sometimes they win, and then what you do is you use those things to go to the next job. They have, you know, there's NABJ, they go to, you know, different conferences, and other news directors see that, and so if there is a way for you to move up, that is the way. So you use that. They're just portfolio builders a lot of times. I don't know the structure at every company, but yeah, at most media companies, it's just built. It is always about building that portfolio. And every front page you get, or every sweeps piece that's successful, you can use that as leverage to get either have the company continue to pay you more money or move you up if you want to do that. And I've seen people do that. Plenty of people do that. Or you use it as a portfolio builder to go somewhere and negotiate somewhere else, depending on what you want to do. Mm-hmm.
It's like that in tech too. You know how many people I know from Google, Amazon, Facebook, all these different places that don't know nothing about nothing?
Right.
Like real talk, but you use that once I'm on Facebook, I made it there. I went through the process. I got hired. You automatically assume I know my shit.
Yeah. It's just you get paid based on the reputation. It's kind of a thing. You get paid for what you do. Then you kind of get paid based on kind of your reputation for a while. Once you kind of been out in the industry, you have the we call the social proof. People still say that social proof. What you do.
You get one. Oh shit! If I had a Google on my title, game over.
Oh yeah,
anything like that. Any of them top 4. I went to Hootsuite. God damn, I could have had them. Yo, cuz I had them too. They called me, cuz.
Well, you know what, cuz sometimes you just gotta let it out. You know what I'm saying?
they called me. I was trying to be real. They were like, Hootsuite was like, you could be you.
They called me.
I should have shut the hell up and went over there, did the podcast on the side.
Yeah,
that's all right. That wasn't your bad.
Based on what Cuzzo said earlier, you know, it's very difficult for creators, right? And you're a creator at heart, right? Anybody that has an artistic ability, painting, drawing, writing, music composition, right? You're a creator. So like he said, like, you know, when you are creating, you become passionate about your work. So that's what I said, like, you just have to understand what your personality is and where you're going to fit in and not, because sometimes it's very difficult to separate your love for, you know, what you're doing for that piece for the, like, you know, somebody being like, nah, it wasn't good enough, it's trash. Like, you know, like, what? Like, you know what I put into this motherfucker? Like, you know, I want to say though, the news reporting, I think, is just so essential for people to stay in the know. We rely on it so much for critical information, almost about everything, right? Finances, education, you know, current events. It really shapes the way that we we shop, right? The things that we buy, the things that we eat, we consume, it really just shapes our lives, right? I think that's a huge responsibility for this type of a platform. So, you know, how do you deal with the pressures of that, right? Because I know like sometimes you have to write a piece and they tell you like, hey, Doris, this is important, right? Like this piece, we need this piece. Like, how do you deal with some of the pressures with understanding like when they bring you a story and they're like, this is one of them ones, you know, and we need it to kind of be, it kind of hit. Like, how do you deal with those kind of pressures?
I mean, you sign up for that kind of work when you're a journalist.
Okay.
Thankfully, I don't do it as much anymore. I'm on the other side.
Right.
I kind of help them craft the stories, on the PR side of things. But yeah, when I was writing, it's kind of part of the game.
Okay.
What it is, you understand, like I said, that's where that objectivity and lack of ego, well, trying not to have an ego helps you, because you get in the mindset, all right, you just think, I have an assignment to do. What are the facts? You kind of get it what it is. Every journalist has a process. All right, what's the angle? That's your first thing. Who am I talking to? What's the audience? What do they expect from me? They expect me to tell them the truth, is, you know, in the most concise way, in a way that folks can understand, and using brevity to do it. They don't want me to stay there telling them, giving the whole dissertation. They want the facts. They want it now. They want to get out and go about their lives. So that's what you're always keeping your audience in mind. That takes it kind of puts the pressure on, but it lets you know what your focus. Then you go out and you figure out, okay, where are my sources? You know, you go out, you get your information, you've got to vet your sources, because not everyone's telling the truth, sadly. You've got to vet your sources, make sure that what you're delivering is worthy of your name or your byline. And then, like I said, and you just move on from there. Like, what it is, it's just like a process for us. We don't, like I said, we don't really normally get too emotionally attached, because you just get tunnel vision. When you have a story to do, you're running into the fire. All right, I gotta go. You know, and then you got that deadline takes away all that, any other chatter going on in your mind. You don't have time to even think about that, because you've got 5 hours to write this story, and you've got to chase down sources, which is really hard to do sometimes, because you're on someone else's schedule. So that could chop you down to about 2 hours to actually write. Some of that 5 hours is just you waiting on someone to give you information. So no, you don't really. Yeah.
Nothing kills creativity quicker than pressure.
Oh,
Nothing kills creativity quicker than pressure.
Oh, pressure will make you, your whole goal is get the facts, vet it, get the story written, and get it out. That you're just kind of go.
And I've got to ask you too, sis, because we've been talking shop. Like, I'm super interested in the publishing too. Like, so this is a dope conversation. But I want to ask you something personal. Like, so we celebrate Women's History Month. What's one of the best lessons that your mama gave you? What's something that stick out? What's one piece of game that mom gave you that you still hold with you to today?
Oh boy, and it sounds really corny, but my mom just always said I could do anything, literally. So when I walk in the room, I'm already convinced whatever I want, I'm going to get it. It's probably me being a little bit spoiled too. That's kind of her fault as well. But no, when I go into places, I go in with the full thought that whatever it is I'm asking for, or whatever it is I'm aiming to do, I'm going to do it.
Message.
I like it.
Major though, but a lot of us don't. A lot of us, if you have a parent that does that, then you understand. But if you don't, it sounds foreign to people who don't have that, right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they were like, "How do you believe in yourself?" But then there's a lot of messaging in what you just said. So, like, I really appreciate you even saying that, right? Like, just having your mama Dukes to be like, "Yeah, you can do whatever you want." But she had to say it enough times we actually believe that shit.
Oh yeah, 2 years ago when I was applying for my current job, I was a ball of nerves. It's like kind of my dream job. I really, really, really wanted to be here, so I was having whole meltdowns. And so I was like, oh, I'm probably not going to get it. And she had to call me on the phone and give me the business, like literally get me together. Okay. She tied me up and she was like, you need to pick yourself up. I don't know why you're having all these self-doubts. And she ran down my whole resume. You've done this, things I didn't even think she remembered. And she had to remind me that I deserved it. You know, I had a little bit of that, go through that imposter syndrome thing. Like, do I belong here? Can I do this? It's very nerve-wracking. When you're kind of moving up levels, and she had to remind me that I've been told you can do anything, you got it, you'll be fine.
That's real.
I got to get you, Doris. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you're very composed and all. You're very composed and all that. But I know when you called your mama, you was like, "Mama," you was like, "Mama, I need this job, Mama.
Mama, I love you."
Oh, it was bad. It was bad. She knows me well. When I disappear and she didn't hear from me, she knows she's gonna come and peel me off the floor.
Yeah.
So she already knows me. So no, it was bad. It was very bad.
Yeah.
But how did that work too? Because when I met you, you was running social media for Norfolk, right?
Yeah,
what did that scent look like?
As far as
for you get into that CMO, like did they call you? Did you reach out and apply? Like what is that process like? You're nervous? What's the interview like? Like I'm just curious. Like
it was quite, for this kind of position, it's a lot, I don't know if you'll believe me, but I'm naturally really shy. So I had to, talk a lot more to give this presentation. And mind you, it's, William & Mary Law School is one of the top law schools in the country. So there's this pressure because of that, because of the history and the prestige that comes with this institution, the excellence that's here, all the brilliant people I get the privilege of working with. And I definitely wanted to make sure I was on my A game when I walked in that door. I worked really hard up to 3-4 o'clock in the morning, kind of, I was preparing for all of that. And I just wanted to do my best. I wasn't, sometimes you're doubtful, like, okay, was that the best that I could do? Before I left everything on the table, but it wasn't enough. You have those doubts, but sometimes you have to kind of breathe, call your mom.
I got a dope question, and the reason I asked this is because I actually did this myself. So when I went to go for this apprenticeship when I first came home from the military, it's construction, mind you, it's construction. But I looked at it as like a job, right? You're gonna laugh, and it's okay. You're gonna laugh, right? So I'm like, I need to go fly. I need to go sharp. So I showed up in a blue suede suit and some like $3,000 gators on.
Blue suede suit.
I swear to God, right? So they looked at me like, this is construction, but I said it's a job interview, so I got to, I got to come through like I want this. It was like, just because you put that much effort into, like, I didn't even get into. They was like, you got it, like, just go home. So what was that like for you? Like when you go into this interview, was it like I got to have a new bag? Like I got to bring out the red bottoms? Like what was that like? Did you have like a special outfit? What was that like? The preparation for walking into that meeting? Was it like I can't wear nothing I ever wore before? Like what was that process like? Yeah,
I did everything in my power. I was praying, I was manifesting, I was meditating, I was calling on my friends 50 times a day, bugging them. No, and I'll tell you a funny thing, and you will laugh. So, in order for me again to get over myself, imposter syndrome, again, I do websites. So, I took a screenshot of the directory of employees.
Okay.
And in order to give myself a little motivation, I took and photoshopped my face in the directory already. So in my brain, I'm already there. I'm just waiting for them to actually add me. I said, look, I'm already on there. I'm already part of the, the executive team or whatever. And she was like, oh, you're insane. I was like, no, I need to believe in my brain that I am there. And literally that's kind of how I got over it. I went up there a couple of times to get the feel for the building and for the environment, and it just kind of talked myself through it. And honestly, I just did my best, and I didn't want to give any other candidate any daylight because I had already claimed it was mine.
See, that's what I'm. I walked in with the Chanel bag and the red bottoms. Broke the bank.
Now, as far as outfits, now that's kind of. Now I have a bad shopping habit, so I do that every day anyway. So that's just kind of my normal. I'm always a planner when it comes to outfits and accessories. That's my problem now. So that's normal. I've always got like 5 dresses and accessories and all that stuff when I go to work. That's one thing my mom always imparted on us. Don't go out here embarrassing us. You represent this family. You go out there like you got some sense. If I look any kind of way, my mom sees it. I still get in trouble at my age.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and again, we had a guest talk about this too, right? Especially with women, right? The way your hair is, the way your outfit is, the way you make, that plays a lot into your confidence.
It does.
Your confidence, right? If you look good, you smell good, that gives you a boost of energy and confidence where you like, I got this. If something goes wrong, that hair don't lay as flat as you wanted, it don't twist, something go a little wrong, it can destroy how your whole self-esteem of work. So that's why I asked that, because self-preparation and how you walk into these meetings is really like a major part of how you conduct yourself, your confidence level, and just how comfortable you are with this interview, and if you end up getting the job or not.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
And that's everywhere you go. You have to think about how do you, now it's a fine line here, because of course, as a Black woman, we come with a little more sass, a little more flavor.
Swag, a little
swag.
You're a little seasoned. You're seasoned, Doris.
A little seasoned. So I have, after being some places that did not really embrace natural hairstyles.
Really?
I've been a place where, I had a boss tell me that she liked, my weave more than she liked mine. I had a natural fro. My hair is naturally curly. So she didn't like my naturally curly hair. And so I had an issue with that. But thankfully, though I have not had that experience other places as much, but learning how to embrace my ethnicity, sometimes I will wear, my African jewelry, or I will my heritage. I do that quite often, and sometimes a little more dainty, but I absolutely just allow myself to be me. I said, thankfully, I've worked in places here. They just, you're allowed to be who you are, and that has evolved over the years, which is really
how do you balance that, sis? Being your authentic self and representing the culture versus doing the job. And that's the conversation we had with Adrienne. You know what I mean? Like that. I would love to know your perspective.
Yeah, it is a balancing act, and it is something where you have to walk in with your own confidence, your own style. Like I said, there are some people I work with that have completely different styles than what you would think of in a law school, and they are, and I learn from them too. I watch how confident they are. I watch how bold they are, but they're brilliant people. But they bring their, as far as I can tell, their authentic selves to the table. And I think I see other people doing that sometimes, and I'm inspired to do it myself. Everything doesn't have to be buttoned up, suit and tie, or whatever. It's a lot more free now, and you just have to sometimes just be bold. That's one thing I've done the rest of my career. Sometimes I just a troublemaker, but sometimes I just do things. I'm just bold, and sometimes just being yourself is very bold. Being authentic is bold. Sometimes just walking in with this skin is bold enough as it is. So sometimes you just gotta, when you get to a certain age, you get really comfortable. You know who you are, and you learn that balance over years between being professional, obviously, and then just kind of adding a little bit of your, heritage if you feel, if that's what you want to do.
Message. Yeah. I mean, because. But we always talk about pride within oneself, right? Self-esteem starts with pride within yourself, right? And absolutely. we talk about the playing the game, and sometimes I just have a little trouble with it, because I feel like if I show up to this interview as like playing the game and not who I really am, and I get the job, then when I go to work, I got the job. Now I don't have to play that. Then I'm a whole different person. And right off the bat, if I created a whole different character, or that version of me is so far away from who I really am, you're gonna see that immediately, right? So then I'm like, wow, that's not who I met in the interview. Like, you know what I mean? I think it can cause friction like immediately. So I just think like, you should really show up as yourself, confident, understanding like, hey, this is what I bring to the table, and this is what it looks like, right? You love my brilliance, you love my work, but this is how I personify that. This is what it looks like.
That's what makes it difficult. That's what made the Hootsuite shit so difficult.
Yeah.
I went into that's why I accepted. We talked about the Google shit earlier. I accepted and I said, I'm the hat and the hoodie. I'm the person that's sitting on the couch just trying to get a million impressions, and it's going to make sales more enjoyable for myself. I'm not cold calling. I want them to come to me because I know the value in a relationship.
Right.
I know the value in a relationship. You can sit there and make 100 cold calls, but if I know this person, they know who I am, they know my character, they know I'm not going to F them over, they are going to give me a shot. And that beats you 50% of the time. I get to the table, right? So that's the hard part. So now when you go in there, you're the hat, the hoodie, you still remain that. You start empowering other people, right? Like I told you, the first day I was in the town hall meeting, 1,000 people on the call. There's buttons up, there's ties and all that. Motherfuckers are remote. I'm sitting there like this, like the Fresh Prince. Real talk.
Yeah.
Next town hall meeting was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks later. at least 100 people had hats on, cocked to the side, all that other shit. I've had gay people come to me and be like, yo, like real talk, like I felt comfortable coming out in the job because you're just yourself. You just don't give a shit. You're you and you're shining, you're bright, and I feel like I could do that. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's a balance in that, because that's when I feel like I was doing my best work. You know what? Since I did 1.6 million in 6 months. I was done by 1 o'clock. I was in there closing deals and all that. I was in there chilling. Like I didn't even have to try because I was just doing what I love to do.
Right. And that's where, and I'll bring up that word again, narrative. Sometimes when you walk in the room and you might present a different way, people are automatically spinning narratives in their head about you. Some people come from whatever background they come from. They're telling themselves a story, and that is one of the things where I'm so passionate about this kind of work. You always get to tell your own narrative, despite someone, despite what they try to put on you. Like for instance, I've met millionaires dressed down. You would never know. You wouldn't know who they are. And they don't want you to know who they are because, again, they're just, one, they want people asking for money, but two, they just want to be normal. Well, normal folks. They don't want to be catered to in any kind of way. And
they want to know who your personality is. Even though I'm the millionaire, you're going to act different.
Right, because they know that you're not going to be your authentic self if you know who they are. So, if you are, it matters your attitude, what's in here, what's coming out of here. That's how you begin to change the narrative, of course, we know the negative connotations with hoodies and how some people think of them, but, what college kids wear, So if you go in there in this boardroom and you obviously people know they can make you can make them lots of money, or if you have a brilliant idea, the hoodie disappears, the negative connotation with the hoodie disappears. You have successfully spun the narrative in your favor. So that's the goal.
That's the goal. Spin the narrative, right?
Spin the narrative, and that's know who you are.
And that's the birth of More Than a Title.
Absolutely.
That's the birth of More Than a Title, sis. Because at the end of the day, I'm the hat in the hoodie that you wouldn't know. But guess what? I can code. We can do this. We can dev. We can do websites. We can do SEO. We can do programmatic. We can sit there and create content. We can do keyword research. I could create my own content. We can do social media. I know the algorithm better than half this office. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So why do I have to be just the sales guy? Why do I have to be just this guy? But guess what? Damn the title. Do you know what I got through just to get in this door?
Right. Exactly. And some through so many there, and that's why I was so interested in people's just personal stories. That was the beauty in being a journalist, is you get to kind of live for a few moments in someone else's world, and that's where the ego disappears. Honestly, you get to understand. You might have walked in the door with a bias and thought a thing about a person, and once you learn their story, they tell you their struggles. The only thing that you see is a human being who is just trying to survive, or someone who's overcome something. And you really, honestly, you get to learn more about your own biases, about the narratives you spin about other people too.
That's so real. That's so real. And people think it's fluff. Like when you say be authentic, because it is a fluffy term, right? It's very subjective depending on who you are, right? Like we just had a call today, like real talk, and I'll say it like, being authentic is the best thing you could be, right? We've had 2 interviews so far in this year. We went to Owning Manhattan. We went to Ryan Serhant's office downtown, did a interview in their office. They're one of the they're the top show on Netflix, top 10. We went and did it because I knew the sales guy, because we used to fucking do sales in my first sales job, and I was always cool with him. We used to go get beers, hang out, and we always showed love to each other. Now, fast forward to today. We just got off the phone call with the CEO of Khan. CEO of Khan. When I was working at Cannes and Essential, he was the dude that was just kind of similar to my role, working with the client directors and stuff like that. But it could have been one thing. It could have been one bad thing. I'd have been like, F you, this and the third, da-da-da. I could have not. A couple of times I hit him with a good morning, bro. What's going on? Let's get this money. Yeah. And you don't know where people are going to be.
Right. Exactly.
Treat people how you want to be treated. Be your authentic self. You never know where that shit going to come around and really help you. That's the best advice I can give to anybody in corporate.
Yep, building those relationships is paramount in any sort, and having a good attitude. People don't want to be around you if you're negative. I hate this, whatever. Have a good attitude. Sometimes we're so blessed to be in the spaces that we're in. Obviously, work hard to get there. We belong there, And then, you connect with other people. Of course, you're going to encounter some personalities that may be a little prickly. But even with those people, sometimes they're human beings too. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what their life is like, and sometimes you give people grace, just like you would want grace for yourself. You just connect to people as people. That's where I think, a lot of wires get crossed, a lot of opportunities get missed, and how people really, they don't develop. You can learn something. Yeah. You learn something from everybody.
The janitor got game.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I learned lessons from the people who might have been, janitors, or someone who might have just been kind of working overnight, and the things that I learned, the brilliance in these people. And that's where I was like, I was so passionate about telling those stories, because they have so much to offer. Matter of fact, one thing, one of my mentors told me something that stuck with me for my whole life. He said, you want to know where the most valuable place is on earth? And I was like, where is that? He said it's the graveyard, because that's the place where so many million-dollar brilliant ideas just went and buried secrets. And that method. So I
want to lighten it up a little bit, because we talking shop, we talking career. So Doris, you're a journalist. And we say, don't take your work home with you.
Hold on, I gotta correct you. Not a journalist no more. She is CMO.
No, not a journalist.
CMO.
My apologies. But you have a long journalistic background, right? So the reason I asked that, so like, say if you like meet a guy and a guy's interested, right? Do you do like a background piece on him? Do you like check up on him and all? Like, listen, I need a Stage 3 background on this guy. I'm investigating. You go back to your investigative days, like, okay, before we date, just give me about 24 hours, think about it. Do you do like background checks on both?
Yes, I do. First of all, for any ladies listening, you can check you can get his name, where he's lived, and you can check any court system to see if he's got outstanding any court cases, if there's been honestly, or I have investigative.
You actually do it?
Yeah, why not?
I ain't mad at it.
Hate it.
3 tickets I ain't paid off. It's an easy pass. I don't know.
Oh my God, Doris. Doris is running
information.
Yeah, let me see what his credit score is. Let me see if he paid that Macy's card back.
In 2008, I got some Dockers on layaway.
And look, and if I can't find it, I know somebody who's got.
Oh no!
If I can't find it, and look, we don't need to be the news. Look, I'll say this: we don't need to be the news to do that. Women are like that. We were born with that skill. That's just kind of something.
Yeah, I know, but like, it's funny, because when you develop a skill set, like I said, it's just hard to turn it off. You know what I mean? So that's why I was like, let me ask her that. Like,
now it's not that part; it's the question part that get people in trouble, because when
you said you're inquisitive, and you said you're inquisitive.
And I have a way of asking questions. I get the answer that I want without them knowing I'm asking. To get certain answers is it's a method. That's how we're journalists do. We want you to get comfortable so we get information, but I do that. If I'm doing that to normal people, like, I'll cut it off, stop doing that, because I'm asking 30,000 questions, and they're like, okay, this is not an interview, stop it. So I have to turn that off sometimes.
We had guests that come on the show that be like, I got a checklist.
Oh no!
Like, seriously, like I write out a checklist. Like, listen, okay, let's just go over this before we even get started. What's your mother's maiden name? You know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you're supposed to be having coffee.
You'd be surprised. The more successful, we probably talked to maybe 3 that were married, 3 that are currently actively married, and the ones that aren't is like, it's hard, right? Because
man, like,
certain level of success, it's only certain shit that you're going to tolerate, and you want somebody on your same frequency. That's difficult. A lot of different shit that goes into play, and it's tough. And we promote the Black family, like, we wanted to make it work. Let's make this shit happen, but it's really
a lot of successful women who either do what I do or hire, some of my mentors as well, either divorced or went through lots of problems, because we are honestly married to our careers. That happens where
there it is. Right. There it is.
Working, I was married before too. When I worked a lot of hours, I was working 2 jobs, and I was like 9 to 12, and then 3 to midnight. So it's really hard. It's very difficult to do that when and then if something happens, you literally have to drop your whole life when you're in television news. To drop your whole, even now, if something happens, I'm always kind of on call. So if something happens, I got to drop what I'm doing. If there's an emergency, I got to roll. That's kind of what you sign up for. Then people do have families, and babies and all that, but it is very, especially like I said, for higher paced news, a lot of the moms have to get out of it because it's hard taking care of infant and little children. And caring for a family. And I've seen a lot of my colleagues in news do that. It is very, very difficult to do. So yeah, it's a sacrifice that you make, but you have to have a partner who is willing to ride those crazy waves with you, and not everybody's built for that kind of work. So it depends.
I heard something the other day. I forgot what we was watching, baby. But he said, "Your crazy got to match my crazy, and we be crazy together."
That's a fact.
That's the real shot. I was like,
I'm looking for the Bonnie. Looking for the Bonnie to my Clyde. Like, if I say let's go get this bank, you like, babe, go get the shiesties.
Yeah.
So what's a just like funny, like what's a great, like, or what's one of your number one like deal breakers? Like, so you're a very educated woman. What if you meet a guy and you start talking to him, you start using those like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 syllable words, and he looking at you like, wait, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, what if you talking to him, and a lot of them dictionary words you start using, he'd be like, and he just sitting there with the bewildered face, like, wait, what?
What's going to the club later?
What's like a instant like deal breaker for you, if you don't mind? Like, it's like, what's a quick deal breaker if you see somebody or something happens, you're like, nah, this ain't gonna work. Like, what's a quick deal breaker for you?
Good question now. Oh, now the internet paused.
Oh, no.
The internet.
Oh,
no, not the internet.
Oh, no, she froze. Oh, man.
No.
Doris, you can't freeze. That's a deal breaker.
No, this.
Doris, that's the number one deal breaker on this show. You can't freeze on the show, Doris. No. Come back.
I'm out of here. Ladies and gentlemen.
Doris is a deal breaker. Doris, you can't freeze.
That's you can't freeze. That's a deal breaker.
Sorry.
You can't freeze on the show, Doris.
Freeze on the show. I'll never let it happen again. Sorry about that.
It's the red flag, Doris. This ain't gonna work
out. Flags. Oh no! I was getting to a good answer. No, but
I tell you, we gonna have some fun on this show. We gonna laugh. We might even cry. I got some tears coming down my eyes a little bit right now.
Freezing is a deal breaker.
Freezing is the deal breaker. Here we go. Well, no, answer your question.
Right.
No, everybody has different level. I don't judge people based on that.
Okay.
Disrespect is a deal breaker.
Okay.
I don't care how smart you are. You can be the PhD. I don't care if you have the biggest words, but the minute you're disrespectful in whether that's any kind of connection, whether that's colleague at work, mentor, whatever. That is always the deal breaker for me.
I like it because respect nowadays, especially towards our Black women, is at an all-time low. It's at an all-time low, and so I love that answer, because we definitely need to get back to treating our women like the queens that you guys are, and not like something that's just expendable and we don't put any value into. So I love that answer, because I think that's a priority.
I like that answer, but can I go on the flip side?
Here we go. Oh no, devil's advocate.
I'm not gonna go crazy. On the flip side.
Oh no,
not on just on the flip side.
Internet. No.
On the flip side, we need to be loving each other. There's too many bullshit relationships. Other content where this one is better than that one. I don't need this one. I don't need this one for nothing. Like, F that. We trying to build legacy, family, the Black community. We're not going to do that if we're not together. So the same way the Black woman needs to be respected is the same way the Black man, the Black king that is a king, needs to be respected. Because not all of us are on that type of timing, but the ones that are queens, kings, and the ones that actually get into it, we need to treat with respect, and we're going to put them on a pedestal. All the ones that's on that F shit, we not with it. So I'm just going to put that out there.
No, I can go for that.
You know what I'm saying? I wasn't going to go crazy, but it has to be said.
You could. So you got the education, Doris. You got the dream job now. You're working a lot. Now, there has to be balance, right? There's always the balance, right? So what does Doris like to do when she's trying to disconnect from work? When she puts the phone down, closes the laptop, what do you like to do to decompress from like a long stressful day or a long stressful week, or anything like that? Like, what are some of your hobbies and the things that you like to do to decompress?
I read a lot, so I get to leisure books. Now that I'm not in school anymore, so I can read stuff that I like. I love. I'm a total nerd. I love
50 Shades.
No.
Doris and his sister Soldier. She's in. So what's the other one? The coldest winter ever.
I know one of my favorite books.
I'm trying to find out what her alter ego is. I'm trying to find out what her nickname is to that alter ego. I'm trying to see where it is. I'm throwing no hints out there. Like, okay. No, your nickname ain't Sasha, you know?
It is not. It is not.
Okay,
It's fierce, but it's not Sasha. It is fierce though, but I won't tell you.
Oh, well, see, there it is. Okay. Okay, so you like to read. Okay, what about traveling?
I love traveling. I love to travel. I have to travel next week, matter of fact.
Okay.
But, yeah, I love traveling. I'm in the gym if I need to decompress, de-stress, go for walks. And, that's what, and sometimes I'm just scrolling on TikTok, honestly. I'm just laughing.
Okay.
I'm kind of a homebody most of the time. So because my job requires me to be, social a lot, I'm more of an introvert. So sometimes my social battery is completely gone. So I need to be in the house recharging, getting my stuff together. So I'm more of a quiet, chill, do things solo. I love the solo vacations. Yeah, those kind of things where I can just kind of reset myself are really helpful. Yeah.
Best place you ever vacation to?
Yeah.
Chicago. I love
Chicago?
Right.
You went to Chicago?
Come on, Doris.
I had the best experience. I know. I've gone to some other places, but honestly, Chicago was my favorite place. Yeah.
You went to O-Block? You was at O-Block?
I don't even know what that is.
That's the hood. That's the hood. Like,
no. I was in the other parts of it. No, I had a wonderful time there. It was one of my favorite cities. Yeah, I heard
Chicago's really beautiful. I'm not gonna lie. I haven't heard any bad things about Chicago, like the landscape. I heard the restaurants are super dope. Yeah. It was just, and I think we're gonna try it.
I had heard so many bad things about it. I'd heard about the neighborhoods and all that. And when I went there, I was blown away by, because there's a mixture. There's a city life. You've got some, some waterfront things you can do. It was a vibe there. I just kind of fell into, I didn't want to leave. I loved it. Yeah, I loved it.
Hopefully you ain't go there in winter.
You go to Chicago, you automatically, I get shot at baggage claim. That's how
I'm gonna be honest with you.
It's crazy out there. Nah.
First of all, any trip to Chicago, I'm like, what month? First question, what second month are you talking? I'm not going to Chicago in December. Like, no. It better be in August or something.
Yeah, definitely. You cannot go and, you're going on the snow.
Right.
I'm
not trying to go out there and be an Eskimo.
Yeah, right. No, I don't do that kind of cold weather.
It's cold out there.
Kind of cold weather.
Okay.
But, in the summertime, it was, like I said, it was such a beautiful experience. Maybe it was just the time I went, but I loved it. I was very, very pleasantly surprised by Chicago.
Okay. This is we're celebrating our queens this month, right? All women.
Thank you.
All month, and
my pleasure.
You have an audience now. They're listening to you. They're commenting and things of that nature. What would be a message that you want to give to the queens and even the kings, but mainly to the young queens that would aspire to follow in your footsteps and become successful and things of that nature? What would be a message that you would like to send to them right now?
Never stop learning. Always be a student. That's the thing. People get to a certain level where I don't want to learn that, and never stop learning. Always be curious. That's I'm nosy. I want to know how to do something. I want to learn, when someone showed me how to do a website, I just dove in for like 5 or 6 hours overnight because I just wanted to know not because I was trying to learn it. Well, for money, I just want to know how to do it. Always be learning something and value yourself. Then once you learn that thing, get good at it. And if you don't like it, move to something else. You don't have to stay stuck in something you don't like. Find the joy in the learning part of that process. And that's what really makes success. If you really love what you're doing, and you hear this all the time, but really, if you love what you're doing, you will naturally just want to keep, you'll be curious about it naturally. You'll keep,
absolutely,
be cake and candy. You will hit some rough patches, but you're always willing to allow yourself to be curious and learn. You'll be surprised at what you'll discover about yourself, what you'll like. Like I turned my hobby into my career. So here we are.
Right. There you go. Do you actively do the mentorships for young women or even young men right now? Has anybody hit you up and say, hey, Doris, I would love for you to be my mentor and learn from you? Because we talk about the importance of having mentors in our community and the impact that can have. So are you a mentor actively right now?
Yeah, unofficially, I'm a mentor for many many young students. You know, I work in a law school, so a lot of students, you know, they'll come and talk to me if they're having issues. I'm checking on them, so kind of unofficial mentor. Gotcha. I have a niece. My niece, matter of fact, she is also a law student as well. Okay. Her first year. Nice. So she's my number one mentee. I love her to death. So smart. Right. But yeah, young ladies reach out to me all the time and just ask questions. And sometimes I'll see young people on LinkedIn or they're posting stuff about their new businesses, or I might see something, an opportunity. So I'm always just kind of doing it undercover. But yeah, I'm always been a mentor for many years, just not official title, but always willing to help however I can.
I love it.
I got to ask you my last one. Is you're big into affirmations like me, right? And me and because we're both into it, right? So what does the mountaintop look like for you? What is something that we could have on camera today so when we can see you 2, 3, 4, 5 years from now and said you said it here first and you got there?
Yeah, so just going to affirmation. Is what you're asking for?
Affirmation. What's the mountaintop look like for you?
My absolute favorite one is honor your decisions with action.
Okay.
Honor decisions with action. If you say you're going to do something, honor that with some sort of action. I don't care if it's thinking about it, if it's a strategy, whatever it is you said you're going to do, be true to what you said. Honor your decisions with an action.
Message. And so also, like Cuzzo asked, so what does the mountaintop look like for Doris, right? So now you're a CMO, right? So what's the next step? Like what's
going your own business?
This your dream job, but do we stop right here? Do we stop
dreaming?
Right. Or what's what's the crowning achievement of when you get there, then you can be like, mama.
Well, for me, two things. And actually one of my big dreams, the reason why I went to grad school, I wanted to be a college professor. So always I felt like there wasn't enough. When I was in news, I felt like a lot of students were coming out of school not really knowing how to properly write stories, how to actually, they weren't really ready for this industry. It'll chew you up and spit you out if you're not ready for it. So that is something I'm actively working on is actually getting in the classroom, getting on the other side of education. And
hey yo.
The chew you up and spit you out was crazy.
Yeah, the chew you
up and spit you out was crazy.
It will.
I didn't catch that.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it will. It is it can be an unforgiving kind of business. And then the other goal, I want to try my hand at business again. Once I kind of run my course through, the education, I want to run my own firm at some point.
There it is.
I can hire other people who do what I do and still be kind of a teacher mentor at the same time and give other people opportunities that other people gave me. Honestly, I didn't get here alone. Some people reached up a hand and helped me, and I want to do the same for other people.
I love it. You on mute, Cuzzo?
I respect that. This is dope.
Yeah, I love it.
Dope, man.
I love it.
This is a dope ass episode.
Yeah, we appreciate it. So this is how we like to end off every show, Doris. We would like to invite you with a sincerest welcome and say now welcome to the More Than a Title family, right? More Than a Title family.
Yeah.
And what that means is now you're now family. We've had a lot of guests before you. We're going to have a lot of guests after you, but we don't gatekeep. So if you've ever seen a guest that was on our show before you, or in the future, if you happen to see a guest that you would like to connect to, what we like to do is we like to start a group chat. Do we have Doris's personal number?
No, I'm about to put in the group chat right now.
So we normally start a group chat between us three. And that way we have instant communication with each other. So if you, number one, want to connect with a guest, all you do is shoot us a text and say, hey fellas, I seen so-and-so on the show, would love to connect with them. What we do is we'll check your schedule, check their schedule, we'll set up a Zoom call. We'll all get on the Zoom call together to kind of break the ice, introduce, and then me and Cuzzo jump off, and then whatever relationship you build, right? Because we don't gatekeep, right? We do not gatekeep. Second, if you're in New York, right? Now you see how we are virtually. If you're in New York you're at an event, you're doing something you want us to support, or you just, want to, paint the town red and get some drinks and, come see our neighborhood. We bring you to our old block. Give us a call, and we love to meet up with our guests because this is not a transactional experience for us. This is the baseline to continue, because you and Jarrett already have met and started your relationship, but we want to continue this relationship ongoing, and that way we can help each other grow and just be great, right? So welcome to the More Than the Title family, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of people that want to reach out to you. I'm getting a lot of comments. Cuzzo's getting a lot of comments. There's going to be a lot of people that want to connect with you. Can you tell the people the best way to get in contact with you if they're looking to do so?
LinkedIn is probably the best place. I live on LinkedIn. So if there's any, just look me up on Doris Taylor on LinkedIn. Shoot me a message if you have a question. Connect with me. So I'm always open to answer questions or connect with folks.
All right, but fellas, don't shoot the message if you got unpaid parking tickets. We already talked about, what I'm saying. Anybody shooting the message, just understand that, she might go back and,
that war from 2012.
Hold on, Mark. You got a D in English in the 7th grade. Yeah, we got to talk about that. Like,
be prepared.
Yeah, be prepared, man. So, if you got any other questions, Cuzzo?
Nah, we straight, baby.
Okay, so listen, ladies and gentlemen, again, another phenomenal episode with another phenomenal guest. Again, we appreciate you, Doris, for coming on to our show, to our platform, which is now your platform also, right? And sharing your story and being vulnerable and trusting that we're going to cultivate your story the way you want it cultivated, and you get to show up as your authentic self, right? So ladies and gentlemen, listen, she told you about her job. She told you about her education. She told you that, the guys that might want to holler, you better have a two-factor authentication, because, what I'm saying, she asked a lot of questions and she's going to get through the first one. And, your shit meant to be right. And she was vulnerable with it, right? And she let you know that, again, success is not linear, right? Sometimes success means sacrificing personal relationships, friendships, but it's what you want to do. You have to value what you want to do, right? So she came on and she showed you all these things, which reiterizes what we say to end every single show. The dream is free. Cuzzo, you on mute. That's a deal breaker.
Deal breaker, definitely a deal breaker. Definitely a deal breaker. I was on mute. I was sitting there. They doing construction outside. I'm trying to produce.
We're gonna do it again. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, the dream is free. It's a Friday. I'm ready for the Dindus.
Tune in on Tuesday.
And the Dindus. Well, those are sold separately. We out of here, man. This was a fire episode, fire week. It's your favorite podcast, More Than the Title. We see y'all next week.
What you know about me? Seen it all, heard it all. Oh, what you know about me? I done it all, just one.